Okay, so in these samples, I've got a gel polyurethane, a spray lacquer, and a tongue oil. Now they all do a pretty nice job as a clear natural finish, but let's hit the pros and cons of each one. So first is a gel polyurethane. Pros, it's easy to apply, it's much easier than brushing it on, it's very durable, and then there's no sanding required in between coats. Really simple finish to put on. Cons, it requires about 6 hours between coats. It also yellows with age, and then repairing scratches in cured polyurethane is a little more difficult to do than it is in other finishes. A couple of things to consider, okay? And the second one is spray lacquer. On the good side, this stuff dries quickly. You can make multiple coats in one day. It's pretty durable. There are no messy rags to clean up when you use spray lacquer. Plus, you can create any sheen you want from flat to glossy. And repairing scratches and cracks in aged lacquer is about as easy as it gets, too. But on the downside, this is not quite as durable as polyurethane is, but it's still a tough finish. While you're applying it, it does need to be sanded in between coats to help achieve a nice, good, smooth finish. Plus, during application, humidity can cause the finish to look kind of milky. So those are a couple things to know about. Now, if you don't have spray equipment, what you're going to use are aerosol cans. And to make that a little bit easier on you, get yourself a handle like this in the hardware store or paint store. They're just a few bucks. They attach to the top of an aerosol can, and it makes it a lot more comfortable when you're spraying a finish. And if you're more comfortable, you'll be in a lot more control of how that spray job is going on. And then this third finish is a tongue oil. This is a simple yet beautiful finish. Now on the downside, oil-soaked rags are pretty hazardous, and you've got to dispose of them carefully. Plus, this kind of finish provides very little protection, and it takes quite a long time to dry in between coats. Oil might not be very protective by itself, but it's pretty important to point out that once it cures, you can put a top coat of lacquer or varnish polyurethane right on top and get yourself a nice protective finish on top of the oil. That's something good to know. Now, adding color to the wood with stains or dyes, on the other hand, presents some difficulties. The wood grain is essentially an unpredictable fusion of both really thirsty grain and really tight grain. So a stain or a dye applied right to the bare wood, even with proper sanding, it just won't take without blotching, kind of like this. Now fortunately, there are some ways around this. You just have to know some tricks. So one of those tricks is just to know what kind of stain you're using. Now these two samples look quite different, but believe it or not, they're actually the same color by the same brand, which is Cherry by Old Masters. So what's the difference here? Well, this is a penetrating oil stain, and this is a gel stain. The penetrating oil stain works really well for woods like oak or ash, woods that accept stain quite easily. But you can tell on Beech, it took it really blotchy. It didn't do a nice job at all. The gel stain, on the other hand, is a real thick, creamy kind of stain that rides right on top of the wood, and it produces a much more consistent result on harder to stain woods like Beech.
Applying a gel stain is simple. You'll prep the surface by sanding to about 220 grit, clean off the dust, and then you'll use a brush or a rag to apply the stain. Just coat the surface, work it in all directions, and then you wipe it off. You'll need to use a little artistic skill to keep the coat of stain as even as possible, being cautious not to wipe too much off in little patches. Sometimes a technique called dry brushing can help you a lot too.
Of course, maybe you don't want such a bold change in color on your Beech. You can consider doing it like this instead. Okay? Using the same gel stain, you put down a wash coat of sealer first, then that stain. As you can tell, you get a very consistent color with just a really mild change in color. That's really quite pleasing. So take a look.
This sample has a coat of Zinsser Seal Coat already applied, and you'll see pretty quickly the drastic difference in color you get, even though we're using the very same cherry gel stain. And the application process is identical to the last one. You wipe it on, you wipe it off.
Usually dyes are a pretty good choice when you want to color a blotchy wood, kind of like Beech. But even Beech has trouble accepting dye. But there are some pretty cool uses for dyes, such as jet black. This does not come out blotchy at all, and it's a pretty cool effect. Or you can make more complex and sophisticated colors by using a dye, a sealer, and then glazing with a gel stain on top of that. You come with a pretty cool color. Take a look at this.
This sample has golden fruitwood dye and a coat of sealer already. Check out the left side of the board. The dye job came out awfully blotchy, but no problem, we're going to fix that. Apply a dark brown gel stain, and on this one I'm using Spanish Oak by Old Masters. Once again, the process is identical. You wipe it on, you wipe it off. But as you wipe off the stain, pay attention to the color and you'll do some blending as you go. In the end, we have a chocolatey dark brown color with nice reddish orange highlights throughout. Once it's dry, you'll just protect it with your favorite clear finish. I hope some of these tips and tricks have helped you out, so send us your questions as they come up.